Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Chaitanya Charitāmrita overview class. Thank you for joining in. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shuddhavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shavasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. We are discussing from Chaitanya Charitāmrita Adi Leela. We are on 5th chapter. So in the last class we discussed the 4th chapter, the confidential reasons for appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Kaviraj Goswami described in detail the 5th and 6th verses of the 1st chapter, describing the internal reasons, the confidential reasons to understand the glories of Radharani's love, to understand and experience his own sweetness, and to experience the pleasure which Srimati Radharani is experiencing. And then in the 5th chapter, we saw Kaviraj Goswami now describes the 7th verse of the Adi Leela, that is the glories of Lord Nityananda. The very famous verse, Sankarshana Karana Toyashai, Garbhoda Shai Chapayobdishai, Sheshascharam Yasyam Sakalacha Nityanandakhyarama Sharanam Mamastu. So now Kaviraj Goswami is describing this verse in detail, and in response to this, we have discussed so far how Lord Nityananda, he is the source of Sankarshan, and Sankarshan, he is one of the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha. So Kaviraj Goswami is now describing that how this Sankarshana, he manifests spiritual world, and then he will describe how Sankarshana is a source of Mahavishnus, who creates the material world also. So in the 16th verse, it is described, in the 14th verse, we are discussing the description of Paravyoma. So Kaviraj Goswami describes that beyond the spiritual nature, beyond the material nature, there is a spiritual nature which is called as Paravyoma. And Prabhupada describes in detail what is this Paravyoma, what is this spiritual world all about. So Sankhya philosophy, which is described by Kapiladev in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, describes that there are 24 material elements, and the spiritual world, it is not made up of any of the material elements. It is made up of spiritual elements. And therefore it is Sanatan. It is eternal. And Prabhupada writes, to the gross materialist, this Paravyoma is a mystery, and it will always remain a mystery. And he says that even what to speak of spiritual world, even this material world is a mystery for scientists. In the huge expanse of the cosmos, this earth is just a tiny speck of dust. One time Srila Prabhupada, he was in Los Angeles and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was returning from a very successful book distribution marathon. And Prabhupada, just to humble him, he said, "Oh, just see, there are unlimited universes in this creation. And in amongst them, there is one, the smallest of the universe. In that smallest of the universe, there is one small planet Earth. In that one small planet Earth, there are 7 continents. In that, there is one America. In that, there is a small city, New York, Los Angeles. And then in that, there is a small temple where Tamal is there and he is thinking, I am such a big person. So we are so very insignificant." Prabhupada writes, the disease of the modern mind is disbelief in everything that is coming from scriptures. That is ingrained in everyone. Whatever is there in scriptures, first response is rejected. And therefore, they can never understand the spiritual world, paravyoma. They will never understand the potencies of the Lord. Lord is so very powerful that he has put, Prabhupada would tell the story that one time there was a cobbler and there was a Brahmana. And Narad Muni went to meet both of them. And this cobbler, he was looking very simple. And before that, Narad Muni went to Lord Vishnu and he said, so Narad Muni went to meet both of them. So this cobbler, he asked, "Oh, Narad Muni, are you going to Vaikuntha?" Narad Muni said, "Yes." "So can you please ask the Lord, when will I go back to the spiritual world?" He said, "Of course." And then he went to Brahmana. Brahmana also asked the same thing. This learned scholar was very expert in the Vedic rituals and sacrifices. So he went with these 2 questions from these 2 people and he asked the Lord. Lord said, this cobbler, he'll come back to me in this life, after this lifetime. And this Brahmana, he'll take many, many more lives. He said, "What? This cobbler, he knows nothing, but still, you're telling he'll come back to me in this life." So Lord Vishnu said, "Okay, you go and tell both of them. When they ask, they will definitely ask what the Lord was doing. So you tell them that Lord was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle." So Narad Muni, when he went to Brahmana and he told this, he was surprised. That, "Oh, I will go back to the spiritual world after many, many lifetimes. I don't think you went back to went to meet Lord Vishnu. What he was doing?" "Oh, Lord Vishnu was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Oh, just see, he's making a fool of me." He didn't accept it. And then Narad Muni went to a cobbler and he said the same thing. And cobbler said, "Wow, that's my Lord. That's the glory of my Lord. He can put through an elephant through the eye of a needle." So Narad Muni says, "Do you believe this?" He said, "Of course. What is the problem? The Lord can put a huge tree into a small seed of a banyan tree. What is difficult for the Lord?" So Prabhupada writes this story, this example in the purport, that the Lord, he can put unlimited trees in small seed. That is the potency of the Lord. So therefore, we cannot understand the Lord by our minimum limited intelligence. We have to approach the authorities. Mahajano yena gata sapantha. And Prabhupada writes a very interesting line in the purport. He says, the revealed scriptures, revealed knowledge in the beginning is unbelievable. Because, we have a nature to clarify everything with our tiny brains. So in the beginning, it is unbelievable. But, if you speculate about it, then you will never understand it. And the more we practice spiritual life, the more we advance in spiritual life, the more we become realized. How? By the mercy of the Lord. अथापि ते देव पदाम्बुजद्वय प्रसादलेशानुगृहीत एव हि जानाति तत्त्वं भगवन्महिम्नो न चान्य एकोऽपि चिरं विचिन्वन्. It is described. Brahmaji is telling, praying to Lord in the 10th canto, "Oh my Lord, nobody can understand you unless you give your mercy." How to receive the mercy of the Lord? When Lord sees our intense, serious endeavors to come close to Him, then Lord gives mercy. Otherwise, it is not possible. So therefore, nobody can understand the Paravyoma by his own limited intelligence. And he says, Kaviraj Goswami describes that this Vaikuntha is all pervading and it has all the transcendental attributes of Krishna. And in this Paravyoma, there are three. The highest planet is called Krishna Loka. In that Krishna Loka, there are three divisions: Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokul. And amongst three, Gokula is the highest. It is also called as Braja or Goloka. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he describes in detail about the spiritual world. How the spiritual world is full of desire trees, Chintamani, Prakarasadma Sukalpa Vriksha, and how Goloka Namni Nijadhamni Tale Chatasya, Brahmaji's prayers in Brahma Samhita, how the Goloka Dham is the highest, situated below Vaikuntha, situated above Vaikuntha planets. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has declared, Aradhya Bhagwan Brajesh Tanayas Tadham Vrindavanam. The supreme worshipable Lord is Brajesh Tanaya, the son of Brajesha, the master of Vrindavan, that is Nanda Maharaj, his son. He is the supreme Lord. Where does he stay? Tadham Vrindavanam. Vrindavan, Gokula is the supreme abode. And that abode, when it comes in the material world, when the Lord appears in the material world, he brings that same abode in the material world also. There is no difference. It is identical. So therefore, it is an offense if somebody, if somebody thinks that, oh, this Vrindavan, it is different from the original Vrindavan. The Vrindavan which we see in Mathura, oh, that is different. Spiritual world is different. No, Prabhupada writes, one should not discriminate between the dham on the earth and dham in the spiritual sky. They are both same. There is no difference. And because we cannot experience the spiritual dham in our contaminated consciousness, so Lord, out of his mercy, he manifests all the spiritual abode in this material world only for one's sake, so that we can get attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. He performs so many pastimes only for one purpose, so that we can get attracted to these pastimes and we can perfect our life. Because in this world, people are attracted to so many things. People are attracted to small children. People are attracted to adventure, romance, chivalry, fight, wars. So when Lord appeared in this world, he did everything so that somehow or other our mind can be hooked to the pastimes of the Lord. Athanyadapi Krishnasya tokacharitam manusham rupamasadya tatajati anurundatah. The childhood pastimes of the Lord, they are most beautiful. Whatever pastimes Krishna has performed, it is for one purpose: to attract our mind, attract our attention. So therefore, in the beginning, it is very difficult. Prabhupada writes that it is very difficult to understand what is this spiritual world all about? What is this Krishna consciousness all about? But the more we practice, the more we advance. And the more it will become easy for us to understand. At least we will be able to appreciate a little bit. Nobody can understand to fullest. Even Lord cannot understand. We have discussed this earlier also. Even Lord cannot understand himself. Even Shesha is singing the glory since the beginning of the creation. He has not come to an end. How can we understand? But we can understand little bit. So therefore, Kaviraj Goswami continues and tells that, in this land of Goloka, it is made up of Chintamani, it is made up of touchstone. Trees are desire trees. And materialize, those people who have material consciousness, they think it is an ordinary place. When we go to Vrindavan, we see sewage and the pigs roaming around, and we see, what is this? But a pure devotee can see Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. It is all there. The more we get purified, the more we can experience Dham. So Prabhupada quotes a prayer of Narottam Das Thakur where he is telling that one can see the Dham only when he has purified vision. Even when we go to holy place, there are 3 types of vision we should have when we go to a holy place. First is sensory perception. When we go, we should go and see all the pastime places of the Lord. Wherever the Lord has performed so many pastimes, we should go. We should be eager to visit and take darshan of those places. But seeing alone is not important. As Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, once he was in the yatra and he was standing at the back and taking darshan of the deities. So some devotees asked, Prabhupada, you can go ahead and take darshan. So Saraswati Thakur said, let the Lord see me and purify me. What can I see with my material vision? So sensory perception is important. Along with that, second thing is textual description. We have to hear, we have to read about those places. When we are in the place, when we are in Dham, we should hear about the Dham. We should read about the Dham. And we may have gone to a holy place, but going with devotees and hearing from devotees, it is a different experience altogether. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would go to so many places and he would hear the pastimes which Lord has performed at those places. So first is sensory perception, second is textual description, and third is devotional contemplation. What we have to do? We have to pray. We should be grateful for the opportunity that we have been allowed to take darshan of the Lord's Dham. And then we should pray to the Lord for the mercy so that we can be in right consciousness. So therefore, because the spiritual world comes in the material world, we should understand it is non-different than the Lord. Everything is absolute in the spiritual world. Prabhupada writes, people who are foolish, who are engrossed in material consciousness, they think they are proud leaders. But actually what they are doing? Andha yathandi rupaniyamanam tepi shatantrya murudam nibhattaha. They are blind, leading the blind. Both will fall down in a ditch. So therefore, the highest purpose of the human form is to perfect our life. And then Kaviraj Goswami quotes this verse from Brahma Samhita. Chintamani prakarasadma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhi ravipalayantam lakshmi sahasra shata sambrama sevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. That is the spiritual world. And Prabhupada describes in detail what is happening in the spiritual world. In the 3rd canto, 15th chapter, there is a description of Vaikuntha, description of kingdom of God. That is a chapter name. In that it is described what all is happening in the spiritual world. Yatra chadya pumanaste Bhagavan Shabda Gocharaha Sattvam Vishtabhya Virjam Swanam no Vridayam Vrisham Yatra cha Adya Pumanaste. The original personality of Godhead is residing there. And this place is without any contamination of Sattva Gun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. It is completely spiritual. Vishuddha Sattva. So Prabhupada writes that in the material world, we cannot experience Sat, Chit, and Anand. But in the spiritual world, everything is Sat, Chit, Anand. Even the dust of Vrindavan is conscious. One time, somebody asked Radhanath Swami Maharaj, what happens to if everything is conscious in the spiritual world? What happens to a laddu when Krishna eats it? So it was an interesting question. So Maharaj said, when Krishna eats the laddu touches each and every part of Krishna's mouth and tongue and gives him all the pleasure and jumps out. So we cannot understand with our limited intelligence what happens in the spiritual world. But just the great devotees, they give some examples so that we can have little understanding. Or what happens actually, that we'll see when we go back. So in the spiritual world, the Vaikuntavasis, they are never forgetful of the Lord. They never forget the Lord for their own sense gratification. And everyone in the spiritual world, they have forms exactly similar to Lord Vishnu. Vasanti yatra purusha sarve Vaikunthamurtayah ye namitta nimittena dharmena radhayan harim sarve Vaikunthamurtayah. All have four-handed forms. What they are doing? Dharmena aradhayan harim. Everyone is serving Krishna, serving Vishnu. Nobody is thinking, "Arey, aaj mood nahi, aaj nahi seva karenge." No. Absorbed in serving Krishna. Although they are with their wives, beautiful wives or Lakshmis, all the ladies of Vaikuntha, they are having the same features as Lakshmi. And everybody in the spiritual world, they have their personal chartered plane. Interesting. And they are all flying with their wives in those planes. Beautiful atmosphere. The plane is flying over the pond full of the lotus flowers and Madhavi flowers. And the fragrant breeze carrying the aroma of the Madhavi flowers. They are coming, they are reaching the nostrils of these Vaikuntavasis, but they are not disturbed. This is a very, very pleasing atmosphere and romantic atmosphere. But all these features, they don't disturb them. They don't make them lusty. What they are doing then? They are always engaged in singing the glories of the Lord. Vaimanika salalana charitani shashvat Gayanti yatra shamalam shapanani bharatu Antarjaleno vikasan madhumadhavinam Gandhena khandita dhiyaha pyanilam shipantaha Gandhena akhandita dhiyaha. Their intelligence don't get disturbed by such fragrance. They are completely absorbed. Gayanti yatra shamalam shapanani. Gayanti. They keep singing the glories of the Lord. And although these ladies, they are beautiful, but still they never get disturbed by lust. And then Prabhupada writes, even if a materialist wants to enjoy material pleasures, he should not try to stay in this material world, in this earth, because the pleasure of this earth is very, very low quality. Higher pleasure is available in the Swarga, and the highest pleasure is available, which is beyond material, spiritual pleasure, that is available in the spiritual world. So the best plan, Prabhupada writes, the best plan is to prepare oneself to return to the spiritual sky. And then Prabhupada writes, these playful spaceships, of these astronauts, they are childish entertainments. Prabhupada sometimes is very, very strong. He's saying all these astronauts and spaceships, they are all childish entertainment and are of no use. The best way is to take shelter of the spiritual sound vibration, because Prabhupada writes, scientists, they are just dealing with the velocity of the sound and the air and the light, but they don't understand the velocity of mind is unlimited times greater than this velocity of the light, and velocity of intelligence is even finer, and the soul is even higher. So therefore, even if you want to go to any higher planets, take shelter of spiritual sound vibration. And Prabhupada describes the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Ashtanga Yogi, how he practices, and the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, how Ashtanga Yogi can, raises his life here and then he can go wherever he want. So that is how this, Prabhupada writes that if you want to go to any planet, just we have to meditate on that. Meditate on that devata, meditate on that planet. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamaivaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Just remember and meditate on that form and you will get that form. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrini yanti pitri vrata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajinopima. So why to stay in this miserable world full of problems? You can go to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada is writing detailed, long purport to this verse. And then he says that, what is needed? Systematic training of the mind and intelligence is needed. So this is what we are doing by the practice of chanting, by hearing, by reading, by associating with devotees. What we are doing? We are training our mind and intelligence so that we can practice the spiritual life, and at the time of death we can go to the spiritual world. Otherwise, people of the world, they are just wasting their time. Ayur harti vaipumsam udyamastan jayannasau. With every rising and setting of the sun, life is decreasing. But the person who has taken shelter of Krishna, he is coming close to the eternal life. And what is the life of a materialist? Whole day either they are engaged in working, maintaining the family, and in the night sleeping or engaging in sex life. Prabhupada writes, this is the monotonous life of a materialist. One time Prabhupada, somebody asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, what do you do for recreation? Prabhupada said, our entire life is recreation. Who in the morning 4 a.m. gets up and starts dancing? So our life is recreation. When we connect to Krishna, unlimited scope of happiness is there. So therefore, now Kaviraj Goswami continues that Krishna manifests his various forms in Mathura and Dwarka, and then in Dwarka of spiritual sky, he manifests the first quadruple expansion, that is Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha. And all these forms, they are purely transcendental. They are purely transcendental. They are not material to the even a little bit. They are all transcendental. And Kaviraj Goswami continues that only in these three places, Dwarka, Mathura and Gokula, Lord performs unlimited pastimes. And then, what are the pastimes Lord performs in as quadruple expansions in a Vaikuntha planets? So in the Vaikuntha planets, the Lord manifests as Narayan, and Narayan has 4 arms, 4 hands. Krishna has 2, Narayan has 4, and in these 4 hands he carries mace, conch, club, and lotus flower. And he has 3 potencies: Shri, Bhu and Neela. So Shri Devi, Bhu Devi and Neela Devi. These are the three potencies of the Lord. And Prabhupada writes in detail. He quotes various acharyas. He quotes uh, Jiva Goswami. He quotes from Padma Puran. And he describes how these three energies of the Lord are manifesting. So Mahalakshmi, she manifests into material and spiritual potencies. And either material or spiritual, both have three types. So one is the willing energy, creative energy, and internal energy. So that is, the further division of the Mahashakti, Mahalakshmi. And the willing energy of the Lord is divided again into three as Shri, Bhu, and Neela Devi. Jiva Goswami describes that, when these potencies, they manifest in the material world, what are their functions? The Shri potency maintains the material world. Bhu potency creates the material manifestation. And Neela potency destroys the material manifestation. Apart from this, Lord has so many pastimes. He performs many pastimes in the spiritual world. But when he comes in the material world, the primary function of the Lord is to show causeless mercy to all the living entities. That is the only purpose. It comes again and again in Bhagavatam. That is the question asked by Shaunakadi Rishis. Why Lord appears from the womb of Devaki? And the answer Sud Goswami gave was to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls. That is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Just like there is a biblical story that there was a shepherd. He had 100 sheep. 100 sheep, yes. Actually, lambs. And he would take every day all these lambs for grazing. One day it was raining and thunder and wind was there. So he brought these lambs back and he found that one was missing. So somebody said, "Oh, you have already 99. Why are you worrying for the 100th one?" He said, "No, I cannot leave that 100th one." So he took a lamp, he took a staff, and in that dark night, he went on to search this 100th lamb. And he had no clue where it would be. He kept on searching, and then he found that small lamb perching on the small hill. He was not getting the courage to even jump off the hill. So ultimately he rescued that lamb. So Krishna is that shepherd. Although there are unlimited living entities in the spiritual world, we are just a minority. Just like the prison house, minority are there. And all the living entities in the spiritual world, they are happily serving Krishna. But still, Krishna is so merciful, so compassionate that out of his causeless mercy, he comes to search that 100th lamb was lost. That is our hope. That is the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya avatare vahe premamrita banya sab jiva preme bhase prithvi hoila dhanya ye banya jena bhase sei jiva char koti janme kabhu tar nahi kanistar. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come and flooded this world with this love of God. And if we don't take advantage of it, there is no one more unfortunate than us. So it is our responsibility to absorb our mind and intelligence in pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But before starting the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kaviraj Goswami is brilliantly presenting this philosophy so that we have no doubt about who we are hearing about. Who is this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Is he Lord? Who is this Nityananda Prabhu? Who is this Advaita Acharya? So very systematically, Kaviraj Goswami is describing the tattva of each and every member of Panch Tattva. Chaitanya Leela, Apar agad. It is like an ocean. Ki kohite pare taha avagah sad. Tahara madhurya gandhe lubdha hoye man. At eva tate rahi chaki ek kand. So Kaviraj Goswami says, the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like an ocean. Apar agad. Shoreless, bottomless ocean. Who can understand the limits of this? What I am doing? Ateva tatirahi chaki ekakand. I'm just mesmerized by the fragrance of this ocean, of this nectar. Tahara madhurya gandhe lubdha hoye man. Ateva tatirahi chaki ekakand. I'm just standing on the shore and tasting a drop of this nectar. So that is the glory of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He has come to give us. So therefore, the only function of this Lord Narayan in this world is to deliver the fallen conditioned souls. And he gives liberation, Salokya, Sarishti, Samipya, Sarupya. And then he tells about those who attain Sayujya. Sayujya means merging in the Brahman aspect of the Lord. And then he describes in detail what is there in this Brahman platform. क्या होता है वहां? So outside the Vaikuntha planets, there is an atmosphere of glowing effulgence. That is called Brahman. What is that glow coming? Where is that glow coming from? That glow is coming from the body of Krishna. These are the rays from the body of Krishna. And this region is also called as Siddha Loka. Siddha Loka. It is beyond the Vaikuntha, and it is a place where there is no variety, no spiritual variety, oneness. You will not find any variegated feature in the Brahman. It is like a effulgence of the sun, that's all. Homogeneous effulgence, no variety, nothing. In the sun planet, you will find sun god, chariot, horses, but in the effulgence of the sun, you will not find anything. Similarly is the case with Brahman. And who goes to this Siddha Loka? Even enemies of the Lord can attain this Brahman platform. Kamad, Dveshad, Bhayat, Snehad, Yatha Bhakteshware Manaha, Aveshya Tad Agham Hitva, Bhavas Tad Gatim Gatah. So, in the 7th canto, Narad Muni is telling to Yudhishthira Maharaj, Kamad, Dveshad, Bhayad, Snehad. Either out of lust, envy, fear, and love. Yatha Bhakteshware Manaha. Just like devotion to the Lord, a devotee absorbs his mind in devotion to the Lord. One can absorb the mind in the Lord in any of these emotions. Aveshya tad agham hitva. One can attain his abode. Bahava tad gatim gata, and many have attained such destination. But we should understand, that when it is said that, oh, even if you envy the Lord, you will get the same destination. Even if you are enemy of the Lord, you will get the same destination. No. Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, whenever it is described that the Lord's enemies and the devotees of the Lord, they both attain the same destination. What does that mean? That means they attained the ultimate oneness aspect. Ultimately, Brahman and Paramatma and Bhagwan, they are all same, right? They are all the features of the Lord. But the enemies of the Lord, they enter Brahman. The devotees of the Lord, they enter Goloka or Vaikuntha. So, Prabhupada writes a very, very interesting conversation in the purport. He describes there is a conversation which happened between Maitreya Muni and Parashar Muni. So Maitreya Muni, he asked Parashar, I have heard that Jai and Vijay, they came as three avatars. They have to come three times. Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, then Ravana, Kumbhakaran, then Shishupal and Dantavakra. But we have heard that anyone who is killed by the Lord, they attain Brahman, they get liberated. So why Hiranyakashipu had to take birth again? Why he didn't merge into Brahman? So Parashar Muni gives a wonderful explanation. He says, Hiranyakashipu, he did not recognize the supremacy of the Lord. And he was so much overcome with passion and lust that he considered that Narasimha Devi is an ordinary living entity. And that's why, because he considered the Lord as ordinary living entity, he did not get Brahman liberation. But the advantage was, because he was killed by the Lord, he got the opulence, unlimited opulence of Ravana. He became Ravana and he got unlimited opulence. And then even as Ravana, why he was not liberated? Because again he did not accept Lord Ram as supreme. And he was attracted to the mother Sita. And because of that, he did not get liberated. But Shishupal, the day he was born, he was always conscious of Krishna. He was always criticizing Krishna, envious of Krishna, thinking of Krishna. That's why when he was killed, he was liberated. So that is another understanding which Prabhupada writes. Gopya kamad bhayat kamso dvesha chaidyadayo nripaha sambandhad vishnaya snehad yuyam bhaktya vayam vibho. So Narad Muni is telling in the 7th canto, Gopis, they attained Krishna out of lust. Kamsa attained Krishna out of fear. Shishupal attained Krishna out of envy. The Vishnu dynasty, they attained Krishna out of their relationship. And oh Pandavas, you attained Krishna by your love. And as far as we are concerned, we have also attained Krishna by our sadhana bhakti. Narad Muni is presenting himself in a very, very humble way. So therefore, in the spiritual world, there are so many varieties of pastimes which are going on, but outside the spiritual world, outside Vaikuntha, the impersonal Brahman effulgence is there. No pastimes are happening in the Brahman effulgence. It just contains the rays, effulgent rays from the Lord's body. And this is called as Siddhaloka. Who goes there? The demons killed by the Lord attain this position. So first Kaviraj Goswami describes Paravyoma, then he described Brahman, and then he comes to the material cosmos. And the Adhisthata, the proprietor of the material cosmos, is Mahavishnu. So to describe Mahavishnu, first he describes the source of Mahavishnu, that is Mahasankarshan. So in the spiritual sky, the second quadruple expansion, it is described, which appears in Dwarka. And Prabhupada describes in detail. He writes a huge purport to this verse of 40th verse. Very, very long purport. Many pages, 10-15 pages of the purport Prabhupada is writing in this verse. And it is very, very technical, because Prabhupada, he is refuting the Mayavad philosophy. Because Shankaracharya, he describes that this Sankarshan, he's not there. He's not an expansion of Lord. He's a Jiva. Shankaracharya, he tried to manipulate all that. So Prabhupada writes detailed purport. He first describes what all arguments Shankaracharya has given, and then he refutes each and every argument and establishes how Sankarshan is the manifestation of the Supreme Lord and has same features as the Lord. He is not a Jiva Tattva, he is a Vishnu Tattva. So it describes that in great detail. And it describes that in spiritual sky, there is a spiritual world called Satyaloka. Above Satyaloka, Sankarshan resides there. In the material world, above Brahmaloka, all Satyaloka, there is a spiritual world, and Sankarshan resides there. And Mahasankarshan and Sankarshan, they are same. And then Pradyumna, he lives in Dwarka. Then Anantashesha, Aniruddha, lies on the bed of Anantashesha. So he describes in detail all these things, and he says that all these are purely transcendental, which is not the case, which is, very much against what Shankaracharya is saying. Shankaracharya says that Sankarshan is a Jiva Tattva. And Prabhupada writes in detail about why one should not speculate. Vedic scripture should be understood as it is. It should not be misinterpreted. And he says, ignorance and word jugglery is so very common in this material world, especially in Kali Yuga. That's why it is called as the place of hypocrisy. People like those who are expert in word jugglery. And there are many spiritual leaders who are just expert in word jugglery. And people say, wow, what a wonderful, aristocratic and very, very wonderful speaker he is. But what he is doing is just doing word jugglery. So we should not understand and accept the instructions of these teachers. So the Lord, he has unlimited potencies, and we should not get confused that how can Lord do this? So Lord can do anything. Karmanyani hasya bhavo bhavasya te durga shrayothari bhayat palayanam kalatmano yat pramadayutashramam swatman rate khidyati dhir vidamiha. It is the pastimes of the Lord, they are astonishing even for the scholars, for very, very sober-minded people. Karmanyani hasya, he has nothing to perform, but still he is doing so many activities. He is unborn, still he takes birth. He has nobody to fear from, but still he is running out of fear from an ordinary king of this world and taking shelter of the Dwarka fort. Durga Shrayothari Bhayat Palayanam. He is self-satisfied, but still he marries 16,108 queens. Khidyati Dhir Vidamiha. It is astonishing even for sober-minded people. So therefore, one should accept the scriptural rules and injunctions. One should accept the Vedic scriptures and should not read the misinterpretations of the Mayavadis. And the topmost scriptures are called as Satvata Samhita. And the topmost of the Satvata Samhita is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam. That is accepted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So it describes in detail how Sankarshan, he is not a Jiva Tattva, he is a Vishnu Tattva. And then after describing this, Kaviraj Goswami describes that in this spiritual sky, that Balram, personal feature of Balram, who is also called as Mahasankarshan, he is the shelter of all the spiritual energies. And this spiritual world is full of varieties. It comprises of all the abodes of various Vaikuntha avatars. It is completely spiritual, full of 6 attributes. And the Lord has a marginal potency also, which is called as Jiva Tattva, Tatastha Shakti. And this Tatastha Shakti, who are not so much interested in serving God, they are put in the material world. And Sankarshana, who is the shelter of everything, he is the source of the spiritual worlds and he is the source of material worlds also. Why the Sankarshana is being described? Kaviraj Goswami writes in the 48th verse that Sankarshana, who is the transcendental form of goodness, he is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balaram. So that is the ultimate conclusion of all this description, that this Sankarshana, he is the expansion of Nityananda Balaram. So after describing in detail the tattva of Nityananda Prabhu, now he goes on to describe the 9th verse of the first chapter. And that is the explanation of Tarano Dakshai Vishnu. In that verse, Kaviraj Goswami, he quotes this verse in which it is described that the master of all the illusory energy and the shelter of all the material universes, who is lying on the Karana ocean, who is that? That is Tarano Dakshai Vishnu. Who is he? He is the partial representation of Nityananda Balaram. That is the understanding. He is the partial expansion of Nityananda Balaram. So then he describes what is this Karana ocean? Karana ocean, it resides outside the effulgence of Brahman. So Vaikuntha is there, all the Vaikuntha planets is there. After that, the Brahman effulgence is there. After that, Brahman effulgence is the Karana ocean. And Karano Dakshai Vishnu is lying in this Karana ocean. And what is the job of this Karano Dakshai Vishnu? He is engrossed and involved in the creation of the material universe. So this Karana ocean, it is spiritual. It is completely spiritual. The earth, water, fire, air and ether of Vaikuntha are all spiritual. And Karana ocean, the water of Karana ocean, it is also spiritual. And that's why when Vamanadev, he made a hole in the universal shell, the Ganga which enters, it is all spiritual waters which can purify all the living entities. Yavaila Sachri Tulasi Vimishra Krishnangri Renu Abhyadikambu Netri Punati Loka Anubhayatra Shesham Kastam Naseveta Marishyamanaha. That water which is mixed with the Tulasi offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, it purifies the whole universe. All the three worlds are purified. It is spiritual water. And this Karano Dakshai Vishnu, who is the first Purusha, coming from Sankarshana, he glances over the material creation. So the Maya Shakti, who resides outside of the Karana ocean, he is impregnated by Karano Dakshai Vishnu, by his glance. So Maya Devi has two varieties of existence. One is called Upadana Karan and other is called Nimitta Karan. Upadan means the ingredient cause. Just like, for example, if you want to make a pot, what all things are involved in making a pot? The clay, the potter's wheel, the staff, and the potter. So the potter's wheel, the staff, and the clay, they are called as upadan karan or ingredient cause, and the person, he is called as nimitta karan, instrumental cause. Yeah. So therefore the ingredient cause is pradhan. So Lord impregnates this pradhan, also called as prakriti. It is described in great detail in the second canto, third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The entire creation pastime is described. So Kaviraj Goswami does not go into the detail of all that. He just tells that, this Maya Shakti, this ingredient cause and instrument cause, they are the secondary cause. The primary cause is the Supreme Lord. Just like the potter is not there, and what is the use of the clay and the potter's wheel and the rod? The most important is the potter, the person. Is a primary cause. If the Lord does not impregnate the material nature will not create anything. And the famous example is given many times. Many times we see a goat with some loose hanging skin folds on his neck, looks like nipples. If somebody thinks I'll milk, I will, milk I'll get milk out of it. No, it is not possible. Similarly, if somebody thinks that this material nature is creating all the varieties, no, it is not possible. It is like the nipples which are there on the neck of the goat. They cannot give milk on their own. So unless Lord impregnates the material potency, material energy, the material energy does not give birth to any of the material manifestations. Krishna is the original cause. And then he describes the glories, further glories of Tarano, Dakshai, Vishnu. So this Tarano, Dakshai, Vishnu first glances on the material creation, material nature, which is called as pradhana or prakriti. And this pradhana gets transformed into Mahatattva. Bhagavatam describes in detail that Lord impregnates this pradhan with four things: kala, karma, jiva, and swabhava. And then further it gets transformed into Mahatattva, and under the influence of the time and the three modes of material nature, the entire ingredients are formed. And then again Lord sends his cohesive potency, which binds all these elements and forms the universe. And then Tarano, Dakshai, Vishnu expands and enters into each and every universe as Garbho, Dakshai, Vishnu. And he is responsible for further creation. So therefore, this Purusha, when he exhales, all the universes, they come out in the seed form. And when he inhales, all the universes, they enter into his body again. So that is what is happening. So all the Brahmas and all the lords of the universe, they live only for the period of the breath, one breath. Just duration of one exhalation and inhalation. That is a life of Brahma. 311 trillion 40 billion years. That is just one breath of Mahavishnu. So that is how we have to understand. We are so very insignificant. And we have to take advantage of whatever opportunity we are getting, this rarest of the rare opportunity, which is like a spark in the entire cosmic manifestation. And if we use this opportunity properly, then we can make our life perfect. And we can go back to the spiritual world. Go back to the place where Krishna is there. There's no birth, old age, disease, and death. That is what we are aspiring for. And the path is not so easy. We have to keep on serving, keep on chanting to the best of our capacity. Try to absorb our mind. As Prabhupada said in one of the purports, we have to give a systematic training to our mind and intelligence. We have to train our mind. That is the whole process of Krishna consciousness, to train our mind, to be conscious of Krishna. Because Krishna is conscious of our thoughts. So we have to give best to Krishna. So we have to prepare our consciousness. Otherwise, why Krishna would steal the butter of the gopis? Because the butter was very soft. Krishna does not like hard butter, soft butter. So if we want that Krishna should come and steal our hearts, then we have to make our heart soft. Just like in the second canto it is described of Bhagavatam. Tadashmasaram hridayam batedam yad grihyamanai harinamadheyah. If our heart is not melting when we are chanting the names of the Lord, that means we have done lots of offenses. So we have to try to minimize our offenses while we are chanting, while we are dealing with devotees. Attentive chanting and attentive dealing, they are both very, very important. Then we will experience this pleasure of Krishna consciousness. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Krishna Krishna Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Anybody has any questions? Demons killed by the Lord enters Brahman platform and then they take birth again. How long they remain in the cycle of birth and death? Yeah, they remain in the cycle of birth and death till the time they don't become the devotees of the Lord. Because nobody can stay permanently in Brahman platform. It is not a permanent stage. It is a stage of peace, but the bliss is not there so much. Because a jiva by nature desires reciprocation. So after they stay in the Brahman for some time, they want to come down because they can't experience any reciprocation. That is the jiva's nature. That is our nature, to experience, to reciprocate love. So till the time we develop our relationship with Krishna, we cannot go out of this material universe. So that is understanding. Any other questions? I will stop here. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll stop here. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.